In 1953, the CIA entered Iran, orchestrated the overthrow of a democratically elected prime minister, and installed a king on the throne, all within a mere 72 hours. That pivotal decision lies at the heart of why the United States and Iran today stand teetering on the brink of war. It wasn't a conflict ignited by missiles. It began with oil. Iran possessed some of the world's most valuable oil reserves, which a British company, the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, AOC, was extracting for a pittance. The Iranian people watched this immense wealth sail away on tankers bound for Europe, while they themselves lived in widespread poverty. Then came Mohammad Mossadegh, Iran's democratically elected prime minister. A passionate nationalist with distinctive round spectacles, the eloquent lawyer was known to weep publicly when speaking of his people's dignity. In 1951, Mossadegh did the unthinkable. He nationalized Iranian oil. He declared that this vital resource belonged to Iran, not to London. Great Britain retaliated with a brutal economic boycott, effectively preventing any country from purchasing Iranian oil. Iran's economy began to collapse under the pressure. London then approached Washington, using a word that in the throes of the Cold War opened every door: communism. They told President Eisenhower that Mossadegh was vulnerable to Soviet influence, warning that if Iran fell, the entire region would follow. This was a lie. Mossadegh was a staunch Democrat, not a communist. But the lie worked its intended magic. The CIA swiftly devised Operation Ajax. American agents paid thugs in Tehran to instigate riots, bribe journalists, military figures, and clerics, and manufacture protests to sow chaos. On August 19, 1953, the Iranian army arrested Prime Minister Mossadegh. Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, who had briefly fled, was flown back to Tehran on a CIA plane to reclaim his throne. Washington had chosen its man, and that man would rule Iran with an iron fist for the next 25 years. The Shah utilized Iran's oil wealth to modernize the country, constructing universities, roads, and hospitals. On the surface, it appeared to be progress. Beneath this facade, however, lay a suffocating dictatorship. SAVAK, a secret police force trained by the CIA and Israel's Mossad, routinely tortured and disappeared any opposition figure journalists, students, clerics. Anyone who dared to question the regime would end up in a cell or a grave. The United States was well aware of SAVAK's atrocities, but chose to look the other way. The Shah bought billions of dollars in American weapons and ensured stable oil supplies to the West. He served as Washington's indispensable enforcer in the Persian Gulf, a convenient ally whose cost was the freedoms of 40 million Iranians. The suppressed anger simmered for 2 decades, and when it finally exploded in 1979, its violence was utterly unanticipated in Washington. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, exiled for 15 years, had been recording his sermons on cassette tapes and smuggling them into Iran. His message was simple yet devastatingly effective. The Shah is an American puppet. Revolution is a religious obligation. In January, the Shah fled the country, never to return. Khomeini landed in Tehran on February 1st, met by an ecstatic crowd of 5 million people. The Islamic Republic was born with a foundational obsession. Never again would a foreign government dictate the destiny of the Iranian people. This obsession had a name: the United States, the Great Satan. The country that had destroyed their democracy, installed a dictator, and systematically plundered their oil for generations. In November of that same year, a group of Iranian students stormed the American embassy in Tehran, taking 66 diplomats hostage. President Carter ordered a rescue mission that ended in catastrophic failure in the Iranian desert, with crashed helicopters and American soldiers dead without firing a single shot. The hostages endured 444 days in captivity, finally released on the very day Ronald Reagan was inaugurated, a timing widely seen as a deliberate final humiliation of Carter by Khomeini. The wound was already irreparable, but history had another blow in store. Saddam Hussein invaded Iran in 1980, calculating that the revolution had left the Iranian army weakened. He was brutally mistaken. The war lasted 8 agonizing years, claiming over 1 million lives. The United States supported Saddam. Washington provided satellite intelligence to the Iraqi army and sold chemical precursors, fully aware they would be used to manufacture weapons. When Saddam unleashed mustard gas on Iranian soldiers, the Reagan administration conspicuously looked the other way. For Iran, this wasn't just foreign policy. It was another unforgivable betrayal. As they buried their children, they watched Washington arm the very regime that was killing them. The 1990s brought a brief lull. Iran focused on rebuilding, and the United States turned its attention to other conflicts. Yet, the foundational structure of hatred remained intact. Then came September 11, 2001, and everything became complicated once more. Iran had nothing to do with the attacks. Al-Qaeda was Sunni, while Iran is Shiite. They are theological adversaries. The Iranian government even sent condolences to Washington. For a fleeting moment, cooperation seemed possible. Iran hated the Taliban in Afghanistan as much as anyone and discreetly assisted in the early months of the invasion. However, President George W. Bush shattered that possibility in January 2002 with just 3 words: Axis of Evil, naming Iran alongside Iraq and North Korea. A single speech erased months of tentative diplomatic overtures. Iranian reformers who advocated for rapprochement were politically decimated. Hardliners within the regime pointed to the television and declared, "See? They never change." President Obama attempted to break this destructive cycle. The 2015 Nuclear Agreement, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, represented diplomacy in its most challenging form. Iran agreed to limit its uranium enrichment, and crippling sanctions were lifted. It wasn't built on trust, but on mutual verification. It was the most significant diplomatic breakthrough between the two countries since 1979. President Trump, however, dismantled it in 2018. He unilaterally withdrew from the agreement and reimposed sanctions even more brutal than before. The Iranian economy collapsed, with the rial losing 80% of its value. Iran responded by resuming uranium enrichment, and in January 2020, the two countries approached the precipice closer than they had in decades. An American drone strike killed Qassem Soleimani at Baghdad airport. He was no ordinary general. Soleimani was the architect of Iranian influence across the entire region. The man who built the Shiite militias in Iraq, propped up Assad in Syria, and armed Hezbollah in Lebanon. For Iran, it was tantamount to assassinating the second most powerful man in the country. Iran retaliated by launching ballistic missiles at American bases in Iraq. It was the most direct attack against U.S. forces in decades, leaving dozens of soldiers with traumatic brain injuries. Crucially, Iran provided advance warning to allow for a partial evacuation. The message was clear: we can do this, and next time, perhaps we won't warn you. A full-scale war didn't erupt, but the edge of the abyss loomed closer than ever before. Today, Iran possesses enough enriched uranium to build several bombs if it chose to. Israel threatens to attack Iran's nuclear facilities, while the United States vows not to permit it. Iran, in turn, asserts that no one will dictate its security policy. And beneath it all, the ghost of 1953 continues to beat, a persistent pulse of grievance. The conflict between these two nations does more than merely separate them. It serves to empower the extremes on both sides. Clerics in Tehran need an imperial United States to rally their base. Hawks in Washington require a menacing Iran to justify their positions. The ones who pay the ultimate price are always the same: the Iranians unable to buy essential medicines due to sanctions, and the soldiers returning home in flag-draped coffins from wars no one formally declares. 70 years in the making, this is the perfect hatred. The only project in which both sides have never truly failed.